Hello and welcome back to the Yogi's Pod. I am beyond happy that so many people are watching my videos and are interested in my story, especially this Yogic Step series. But I also receive messages and comments asking me about what all this has led me to. Going through all these programs and being in the ashram, being with Sadhguru, what kind of an impact has this had on my life? And my entire channel is an effort or an attempt to transmit these experiences. This is where my other videos come in, as they are, I feel, an expression of whatever little insight, knowledge, and understanding I have about this life. So consider this a shameless plug to go check out my other videos. And if you do not watch this series from the beginning, that is Yogic Step 1, nothing will make sense to you. Alright, now let's begin with Yogic Step 6. I gave my mom a call from the ashram and gave her an update on my situation. Not much was said, but much was understood. I am where I am and who I am because of the unwavering support of my parents. So I packed my bags and headed back to New Delhi. I left the Isha Yoga Center, Coimbatore in February 2016 and returned to Delhi. Once I was back, the first things to address were my basic survival needs, which if you live anywhere near civilization, would require money or an income. Now, I have nothing against a 9-to-5 job, but I had an idea backed by a plan. And that plan did not include going back to a 9-to-5 job. Not that I think any less of it once again, I just know it's not for me. Although a taste of freedom sometimes can make you unemployable. Before I go on, remember how in my first yogic step I said that things just tend to work out and fall into place for me. I mean, this is not true all of the time, but without going into the details, I really felt that things just lined up for me rather too perfectly. And I'm not really implying anything else by this. I'm not saying it will all work out for you if you do what I do. Because challenges will always be there and the spiritual path cannot be by prescription. Most people would consider this an insecure or a vulnerable situation, but I saw this as an opportunity. I was inspired by an idea to create something. This was of course possible because of many aspects, one of the major ones being my existing financial support, a privilege I acknowledge. But also I was now equipped with a newly acquired privilege, which was an enhanced sense of capability and empowerment. During my short stint in the Isha Yoga Center, I was working with highly capable people. And even the brahmacharis there, some of them were earlier scientists, research engineers, software engineers. Some had very high level corporate profiles working in New York. People from all sorts of backgrounds were there. Some were graduates from colleges like IIT, Harvard, etc. Basically, most of them were very highly educated, at least the ones I worked with. So now some good things were bound to rub off on a young idiot like me. Just by working with them, I gained not only spiritual insights, but skills and intellectual capabilities required to operate and run the teaching branch of the Isha Foundation. So now that I was on my own, I was sure that I wanted to offer at least a part of that in the form of running my own yoga studio. And I was breaking a generational trend with this, as everyone in my family and relatives are almost exclusively doctors or in the Indian Armed Forces. So after assessing what kind of money I was willing to invest into this, I started to hunt for a commercial property nearby to run my very own yoga studio. I came up with the name Delhi School of Yoga, very official sounding institution vibes, you know, but it was just me, at least in the beginning. So if you don't know this, commercial properties in Delhi are very expensive and I wasn't sure how all of it was going to pan out. So I did not want to sink too much money into this experiment as I saw it at that time. So I settled for this about 1,300 square feet place, which was a lawyer's office, I think before. It was not in a good state, but I could see it. I could envision the most pristine and aesthetic yoga studio possible in this limited space and with a limited budget. I bought the place as leasing it was too expensive and did not make sense financially. I did not have a budget for an interior designer, so I designed the place myself. I worked with a contractor with whom I went to purchase and select each and everything from the color of the walls, the flooring, the tiles. I picked each and every doorknob and the taps and the sink. You get the idea. But I'm super picky when it comes to aesthetics, and the people I worked with understood that and executed what I had envisioned beautifully. So what I wanted was the space to be optimized for the transmission of Isha Hatha Yoga practices. Having experienced organizing and teaching classes for hundreds and thousands of people in the Isha Yoga Center, I knew exactly the challenges and requirements of conducting intense meditation sessions and spiritual practices, and I knew how to overcome them. So the result was a boutique studio which could accommodate up to 12 people for Hatha Yoga classes, since they require more space, and up to 25 people for meditation classes. Everything was designed to work seamlessly, and I launched my studio on the second International Day of Yoga, 21st July 2016, with a very minimal marketing budget, which included me going to nearby gated communities, meeting the society management and convincing them into promoting and advertising my studio. But soon my marketing budget came down to zero, because my participants were my biggest promoters and advertisers. I know people are interested in the earnings, but this will vary greatly depending upon your location and the demographic you are targeting. Now, my work included group classes in the studio, group classes in offices for corporations and resorts. I did many of those. Private sessions in the studio, and very few private sessions outside the studio at the participants' residences. I also did collaborative work with many teachers during this time, but eventually it was Ipsita and Tejashree who also started taking classes at my studio. Soon we opened another small studio in South Delhi, but before I could get Delhi School of Yoga to a place where I had enough business which would allow me to get more teachers, I was practically spending every wakeful minute in the studio. I was booked from morning 5:30 a.m. till 9:30 p.m. in the evening, and people would often complain that because I wasn't available to take more classes, and I would say that, are you willing to come at 4:30 in the morning, because that was the only available time for me then. And they would slowly back away when they realized I was being serious. Now, some of you who have learned any Isha Hatha Yoga practice may know that teachers have the option of using videos to show a demonstration of the practice or any asana. This depends greatly depending upon how the teacher decides to do things. But back in my day, us teachers had to demonstrate ourselves, which would mean empty stomach condition for the whole day for me. And I used to have one meal a day, which was at dinner time, because this was the only way I would be able to teach the classes all through the day. Now, the absolute profound joy and fulfillment of offering yoga and meditation sessions is something I cannot describe in words. The amount of respect people treat you with as an Isha Hatha Yoga teacher is rarely seen in any other profession, in my opinion. I met the most wonderful people, and these people trusted me with their lives. People would literally open up and share very personal detail of their lives, and I was privileged to be entrusted with that. And I did what I could to help them. The way I designed my programs were intensive and long-term, which resulted in my participants coming to a level of sadhana which would impress most Hatha Yoga teachers also. And many ended up actually becoming Hatha Yoga teachers themselves. Hatha Yoga is healing in nature as well. People would report back with their physical issues getting better. Some people would be suffering with a health issue for years and decades even, and they were going to various specialists and spending a lot of money and still not getting any relief. And they would end up in my studio only to make a lot of progress in a matter of days. I never promised that, they would get better quickly or within a particular amount of time. But to some of these participants who did make a lot of progress very quickly, it seemed like a miracle. And I have had doctors call me and tell me, what is it that you made this person do? In this particular case, she has had her thyroid levels in the high risk range with a lot of medication for years. And now her medication has reduced significantly. And by the way it's going, she may not need it anymore. And this is the same for psychological ailments as well, anxiety, depression, etc. We have research data now to prove how effective it is. You can watch my videos on the science and research backing Isha Yoga practices. But progress wasn't always quick for everyone, and neither is it guaranteed. I have had participants who were on psychiatric medication for years. And in a period of 3 years, in this particular case, it took the individual to get down to the lowest possible dose. He was very happy when he shared this with me. And some have been completely cured of anxiety issues in a matter of a year. And just for your information, yoga should always be implemented alongside a treatment protocol that your medical professional has advised. It is irresponsible to do so otherwise. Yoga should be looked at as a long-term process to healing whatever physical or mental ailment you have. It will help in most cases. In fact, most medical professionals encourage it today. But you should never stop your medical treatment just because some yoga teacher told you. Yoga has its place, and so does modern medicine in the context of improving our physical and mental health. And coming to what yoga is really about, which is to accelerate one's spiritual growth. To be able to offer that to people is the highest karma one can do. No two ways about it. And if only I could describe to you the feeling of sitting in a room full of people who are meditating. It ranks up there in my life's most beautiful moments ever list. Having tasted meditation myself, and to be in a place where I found myself to be a medium for it to happen to other people, is one of the greatest achievements of my life and will remain so. And you must understand, all of this is possible because of the infrastructure that helped support it. From the very building where my studio was, the electricity, the ambience, and everything requires finances to hold it up. Some people who have zero understanding of how the world works expect me to do this for free, ignoring the fact that they don't know themselves how to do this for free. To them I suggest, please go to the Himalayas and look for your guru or yoga teacher there. I'm sure they are waiting for you. But you want it here in the city. Here we have to pay bills. But me and my colleagues have done a lot of work with charitable organizations for free. What I was getting to is that this physical infrastructure allows for the spiritual infrastructure. This means that a space is consecrated or energized in a way which is conducive for one's spiritual growth. I did this with a yantra known as the Sadguru Sanidhi. Now, just doing practices in a space will change it, but introducing a yantra further elevates it. It is like a machine manufacturing energy of a particular kind, depending upon the yantra you use. But if such things are not in your experience, please do not believe what I am saying. That would not be correct. And currently, I'm not aware of any scientific way or a measuring device to prove this. As of now, a human being who is receptive is the only device which can perceive it. So you can only experience it directly. For the yoga practitioners, it meant that the moment they close their eyes, they have a powerful assistance. Anyone who meditates is sensitive to such energies. I almost never had to tell anyone about it. People would refer to the studio as a mini ashram. The space was just alive. It's like a palpable force. The result was people were able to go through such intense experiences that their lives were never the same. And I once again got to witness it. When you go through such profound experiences together, you form a very special and unique kind of bond with people. Now, coming back to the logistics of running such a place. We did hit a few lows, and I actually started this YouTube channel initially to promote my yoga studio when we were going through a dip of turnout of participants. And I was finally beginning to see positive momentum. In 2020, after 4 years of experience, I wanted to move our second studio, the South Delhi studio, to a more prime location with a larger floor space. I was hunting for properties, but I didn't have to anymore because then in 2020, the worldwide pandemic hit, which meant my studios were shut for a long time. And as you know, this was a death sentence to most small businesses, especially those who were on rented spaces, which we weren't, thankfully. But a few of my friends who were running their own studios shut down permanently during this time. But even after we were allowed to open up again, I had already started looking at other passive sources of income. I'm not going to discuss these other sources specifically, as I feel I have no particular knowledge or value to offer to the viewers here. But it is because of these income sources I'm able to pursue and do what I want in my life today in terms of being a creative and having this YouTube channel. But eventually it came down to a few things for me personally. I saw the limitations of owning and running a physical studio. The amount of effort, energy and time it requires is pretty high. You need to be willing to face the grind. So it was between the cost of running a brick and mortar store versus an online venture. Isha Hatha Yoga practically does not have any possibility of teaching online. The core practices cannot be taught online. It requires your physical presence for various reasons. Most people won't understand why, but it's a limitation for sure if one wants to expand their work and business online. Now, the second is the high cost of scaling up. I'm not saying it can't be done, just the fact that I could not do it. But I will be very happy to see a group of Isha Hatha Yoga teachers pull this off successfully, and I know many of them are doing well. Third is that the Isha Hatha Yoga is currently not optimized for studios. Another reason adding to the non-scalability. This is something I'm sure the Isha Hatha Yoga School of Yoga is working on, and we are seeing positive changes in terms of the rules and regulations every year. Which brings us to the rules and regulations by the Isha School of Hatha Yoga. The rules are set in stone, and we as teachers guard it with our lives. And any compromise made here would eventually lead to a compromise in transmitting these practices to people. And then people end up doing wacky things in the name of yoga, and practitioners are impacted negatively. But having said that, navigating across these tight regulations oftentimes are an obstacle in terms of how quickly we can respond to the demands of the market. Any changes you want to implement with your program must be implemented by the Isha Hatha School, which takes a long time, or it does not happen at all. But I still see this as a major plus, because the yoga which is delivered to the participants is never compromised. On the other hand, the way the teaching modules are designed currently, it suits the short-term programs like yoga retreats very well. Also, I must mention that there are no royalties you have to pay to Isha. This is not the case if you run a studio under any other established organization. And the post-support training is phenomenal at this point. The systems they have developed so far, and some of them which are currently in development, will be incredible for the teachers in the future. Even though the training itself costs 10,000 US dollars right now, they will probably increase it soon, by the way, because it has been about 10 years since this fee has remained unchanged. I know most of you won't agree with me, but I don't think it's expensive at all, considering the amount of resources used to train you. And also, there is a very easy opportunity for you to earn it back if you have a little bit of a business acumen. And if you still think the cost is inhibitory, you can also go for the Sadhana Pada. It's free for 7 months. You cannot become a Hatha Yoga teacher, but you can experience the sadhana which makes a Hatha Yoga teacher or a yogi. Spirituality is not denied to anyone. People who say Isha programs are expensive love to ignore the free programs Isha offers, not only Sadhana Pada, but the charitable work they do in nearby villages. And at this point, they have so many charitable branches. But I guess there will always be people complaining and hating. I have come to accept that now. And I understand if you are someone who really wants to do this training and you cannot afford it, I understand where you're coming from. And I would not recommend you take loans or, that kind of a financial pressure to become a teacher, because it has its challenges. It has to be looked at as a business in order for you to be able to offer this to people if you want to do this full time. But if you're up for the challenge and you're determined to do this, no matter what, you are anyways not going to listen to me, and you should totally go for it. I'm not going to stand in your way or discourage you, but a happy middle ground would be that you do this part-time, as I know a lot of teachers are doing along with their regular jobs, because that way the burden of having ends meet financially is taken off the yoga teaching. Because even though money is an important reality for most of us, which we have to consider, but we don't want it to be our primary driving force for various reasons. So coming to where I'm currently at, I closed the yoga studio in early 2022, mainly because I felt I had outgrown my role of a yoga teacher. I do take classes sometimes, but nowhere near the scale as before. So that is it for this one. Is there a next yogic step? Can I milk this series even more? Yes, of course. Next up, yogic step 7, my trip to Kailash and Mansarovar with Sadhguru. Take care and see you in the next one.